Hey everybody, this is Liz coming to you today, and I am with Connor Stead, who is no stranger to any of you. And I first wanted to start off today by I've had him on before, and something specifically came to me about him the other day. And then it was kind of backed up a little bit by something he posted for the franchisees. So I wanted to share that with you today. And I was thinking about Connor the other day, and this scripture came to my mind out of Deuteronomy 28. And this is what I thought of when I thought of Connor. And if you faithfully obey the voice of the Lord your God, being careful to do all his commandments that I command you today, the Lord your God will set you high above all the nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you if you obey the voice of the Lord your God. Blessed shall you be in the city, and blessed shall you be in the field. Blessed shall be the fruit of your womb, and the fruit of your ground, and the fruit of your cattle, the increase of your herds, and the young of your flock. Blessed shall be your basket and your kneading bowl. Blessed shall you be when you come in, and blessed shall you be when you go out. And that chapter of Deuteronomy goes on and on about the people that believe in God and do what God says, and those things, the blessings will follow them. And the reason it came to mind is because he recently had a little bit of a trial personally. And after that, when he came through that, this is what had come to me. And then this past week, you had shared with the franchisees um, the good part or the end part or the blessing part of
Hmm.
something that had just happened with you. And that was because you had done this price raise and
Yep.
nobody knows the backstory of the many years of giving, the many years of struggle. They just hear the end. And you're still at the very beginning of your story. I mean, like, this is
Sure.
a long marathon, but people can hear the good part that you shared the other day, and they can think, oh, wow, he's made it. He's got it so good. And they have no idea that you are right where they were, where they want to give up, and they're at the lowest time in their life. Maybe they even joined Augusta with the last dollar they had. Like, literally, they have nothing left. They just barely joined and they're just kind of wavering. And so I was wondering today if you could go back a little bit, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, whatever, and share a little bit of that, of the financial struggles in the business and how your thought process was, the moments that you had that were times of like real conviction or helped you turn around, and then share a little bit. Not everybody saw that video, so share what kind of inspired you to do another price raise and the fears and the struggles of doing that, how you did it, and then on the other side here, the benefits of it and how it's changed your life and your outlook, and that really money does solve everything. But to get to that point, there's so many things we have to go through, and it just is what we have to live. So if you could share that with us, I know that was a long intro, but
Sure.
take it away.
So struggles, I'm sure we can all remember kind of all of those like the back of hand. And sometimes it's hard to remember the good because I know we've all always said that we remember like 10 terrible things before we ever remember one positive thing. So, but some of the bad, of course, I felt like I was one of, there was a joke like a year or two ago about the coaches, like in the coaching group chat for Augusta coaches, and they were raising the requirements to join Augusta as we get more mature in the state of the franchise. And we all, like, pretty much all the coaches told Lee that we all joined on like our last dollar or like 0% financing credit card, or like we all kind of, I don't think anybody did it like proper, like how you would hope. And so
Hmm.
I feel like quite a few of us have joined with our last dollar. And by doing that, you kind of rob Peter to pay Paul. And we definitely did that. I mean, we definitely had some credit cards that we couldn't really put room on. I remember, oh, a year or two ago, probably about 2 years ago, I would really put like maybe 500 to $1,000, just enough room for the guys to spend on the
Hmm.
company credit card. There wasn't really enough money to like pay it off. And I think a lot of that came down to I didn't have a super strict plan of what I was going to be doing in the business. And it's kind of funny when you're in that wilderness, really the one thing that's really going to help the business is you're kind of going to have to just do some of the grunt work yourself because there's not enough cushion while you're in certain stages for you not to be doing hands-on work. And so it took me a long time to realize that, and the business really wasn't doing the best. I feel like there wasn't enough production in the fact that I needed to, um, spend your money wisely or like go on an equipment diet. You think equipment's going to solve the issue because you're like, oh, if I could just get done quicker, maybe we could make more money. And then it just came down to the realization. I remember telling my wife, February of last year, I was like, hey, if this year does not bode well for us and we don't have like a tangible in the bank account profit, because like your accountant can always say that you have profit on like a P&L or your tax returns because there's depreciation, there's EBITDA, there's tons of other and financially maneuver or work around to show on paper that you made a profit. And I remember telling my accountant that he said I had to pay taxes. I was like, we lost money. I put money on a credit card. What do you mean? I have credit card debt to pay off. How do like, and then like you have this tax bill and you're like, well, great. I made even less money than I thought
Mm-hmm.
because now I also have to pay this off. And so I remember telling Aaliyah last year in January or February, after going back through training and going back to the coaching program, I was like, hey, if this year does not work out, I feel like I can only put you through this for so many years before I'm just like, hey, keep hanging on. And there's no fruit to the hard work or to the labor or me telling her to put her life or what she wants out of our marriage on pause while
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to do this. And so sometimes there's just a reality check that you have to have with yourself. And I think that that's probably being a good husband is being able to say like, hey, I get that she's saying she's willing to wait, but maybe that's not fair that she's willing to. So I just told her, I was like, hey, this spring, which would have been last spring in 2024, the only thing that's going to matter is, God, you, and the business. And so I really don't care what if we don't get to do something, if that upsets the family, that upsets our friends. I just know that if I squander these 3 months, the rest of the year is ruined. And so I just remember saying, like, we have to go absolutely and utterly hardcore during these 3 months. And that's what's going to make the rest of the year pay off, right? Because then that bodes to upsells, that bodes to winter services. Christmas lights is what we were wanting to look into that year. That goes into retention, that goes into attrition, that goes, that's it. It's gaining everybody, as many people as you can in that time works out.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, um, while it can be stressful, it wasn't really hard because I knew what I needed to do to get there. It was just a hard moment, but it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like, oh, woe is me. My life is hard. We think all winter, like, oh, I need this. I want this spring. I want 100 customers extra, all this. And we get into the spring rush and we're like, we don't want it. We shut off our leads. We do
Wow.
everything completely opposite of what we were wanting 2 months ago or the previous quarter. And I remember like I hired early. I did a door hanger campaign. I probably did 10 or 12,000 of them by
Hmm.
myself while still working in the field. We still had the spring rains, everything else. And then like um, end of April, middle of 1st of May, had 6 employees at the time, and we had four of them quit. Like just all in one week, like boom, boom, boom. They just all quit. And I told my other guys, like, hey, it's not your responsibility to bear all of this. Work your 40 hours a week. We were trying to do 4 10s. We're working 5 days a week. You'll work till 4 o'clock. So that way there's not a ton of overtime, but still I need some support. We start at 7. So that came out to like 45 hours a week. I was like, I still need hours are unlimited. If you want hours right now,
No
you have
kidding.
all the hours in the world that you want. And so we were able to get 145 budgeted hours a week
Oh
done
my
with me and two other
goodness.
people. So we were doing almost $60,000 a month with me and two others.
Wow.
And that was just so that led to some profitability because I had no bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember one of my guys at the time, Zach, he was like, hey, you need to, like, we don't need to take on any more customers. Like, we just need to stay afloat right now. And I was just like, no, everything that we go through right now is only good news later. Yes, it sucks right now. Even if I have to handle the initial mows, I really could give a rat's behind. All I know is that we just need this is in this 3 month window, this is the only thing that matters.
Mm-hmm.
And then whenever that happened, May 15th was my cutoff date. So that was me thinking on the other end of that demand curve. So I was thinking about this in January, right? Like as an owner, you kind of have to think plan out your year of
Mm-hmm.
where you're going to go. So for me, May 15th was the time that I was just like, hey, this is whenever we're, historically going to be on the other end of that demand curve for the spring rush, at least in our area. And that's whenever I was going to reevaluate the business to see, have I hit capacity? Have I hit all the clients? Have I hit the goals that I wanted to? And I think we gained a little over 100 clients that year, and we definitely about gained about 50 or so budgeted hours of reoccurring. About 60. I think before then we were at 87 to 95 because we were still kind of project heavy. We were closer to like 130 budgeted hours the year before a week, but we had 30 or 40 hours a week of projects. But we went up to about 144, 150 reoccurring. So we almost doubled our reoccurring budgeted
Wow.
hours in that 3 month window. And then May 15th hit, and I was like, well, I don't have any employees. And so there was about a 2 week stint where I couldn't do any job interviews, but I worked Saturday, Sunday on doing any of the initial mows, any of the estimates. Like I don't think we missed a drop of anything during that because it was just
Wow.
more and better during that time. So May 15th, I was like, okay, hey, everybody that's joined up until now, they're getting a price increase. And so we did a price increase on 197 of our clients or so, almost 200 people, and we raised pretty much everybody up to 20%. So
Wow.
that's what that getting to capacity was all about. But because I didn't have any labor expense in May, I was then in, the second half of May and the first half of June, I was able to just throw money at the issue because now that I had some,
Mm-hmm.
to put Indeed ads out, to put hiring. I mean, I remember doing interviews on Saturday, Sunday, being at the coffee shop before church on Sunday, just putting up Indeed ads or doing 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m. interviews after church on Sundays, like just or doing it like Friday at like 6 o'clock, like just calling the people like, hey, do you want to meet on Sunday or do you want to meet tomorrow? Like just doing a brief phone introduction, see if I like them, then meet with them in person. So I started to sift through all of this, and at the time, I think my wife was just joining us in the office. So I also had to try to help alleviate some of that stuff for her because she was kind of just the day that I was supposed to
No.
train her
Wow.
is the day that everybody quit. So it was just like her first day was just like kind of handle it the best that we can. So that's kind of the synopsis, I guess, of what the last year or two was like.
Yeah, so let's jump forward to now and
Okay.
just tell me a little bit about what you told the owners the other day, the numbers you showed them, how it's all worked out, and then looking backwards to that back year, all of the things that you think you did right from that price change to how it's changed your life now in the business and how all of that success, we would say, has affected other areas of your life.
Yeah. So like I said, whenever we were able to do the price increase, we were able to use that new money to kind of throw money at the problems. Like just because I recuperated or had some profit doesn't mean that I wasn't still going 100 miles an hour.
Exactly.
So June, we still had to train a bunch of people. So that was helpful that we had some padding in the bank account. And then because we didn't have any employees, we pushed all of our projects off to July and June and July. So we went from like 60 in May, 80 in June to like 109,000 in July because we kept pushing everything off.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think that helped profitability, that was a pro, was in February, March, and April, kind of the spring rush or pre-spring rush, whenever you're starting to get some estimates, I didn't necessarily turn away projects. I just limited them to what time of year we were going to do them. So we put them to like 1 day a week, or just only one person was going to do projects and everybody else was going to do mowing. And so pretty much anything that was more than 1 day's worth of budgeted hours for the truck that typically did projects was pushed off until July.
I
And
love it.
so that's why we were able to do like almost double our revenue from April to July to peak revenue in the spring rush, and then it kind of starts to slowly trend down and maybe a brief up again around like August, September when it rains again, is because I was predicting our slow time and I didn't want to have to let guys go and going into that. And so we put like massive projects basically in July. Like one of them was 80 budgeted hours. It was a $15,000 retaining wall. And
Wow.
so we were able to do that. The only bad thing about that was it was still at the previous hourly rate. So it
Oh
really came out to like
no.
70 budgeted hours. But either way, they got
Yes.
it done in like 62. So
Woohoo.
they still came under budget.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't the end of the world, but that was super helpful was timing. One of the bad things is now that you have money, you feel like it can fix your problems. So
Yes.
instead of um, you can't guarantee what you don't inspect. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was like, hey, it's easier to just give the customer a discount than it is to hold the person accountable because we just have work out our nose right now. Like we just need to keep this ball rolling, or you just, now that you have a little bit of money, you start to kind of be a little bit more lax. You may not stay as later in the day, or a couple of those things along the way. I remember we pretty much went absolutely hardcore up until about August, and I think it's important to take. I don't really think that work-life balance is as much as a thing of like 9 to 5. I think it's whatever works for you and your household is what work-life balance is. Like my wife has established that she wants me to at least be home for dinner, even if I have to go back to work. Like at least
Mm.
come home hour or two and then come back and then kind of go from there. Cause I'm up till, in the spring rush, you're up at 4 or 5 a.m. The guys come in at 7 and then, you're up till, whenever you're done or until you fall asleep at your desk. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so um, I remember it took till about August, middle of August, for one of my guys to come up to me, Zach and Bryson at the time. They were like, "Hey, we need to have a conversation with you. Like right now, you suck as a boss."
Oh
I'm
my
just like,
word.
"Oh,
Thank you.
okay." I'm like, "What's going on?" They're like, "There's something else going on behind the scenes that you are just if it's stress, if it's this employee that you don't like, just like your responses are very like not normal, like they're like harsh, not necessarily like sarcastic. They're like pointed, they're jaded. There's like almost like not necessarily passive aggressive, but you can tell like that there's something else behind the comment. And they're like, I don't know if you need to take the week off, but like if you keep
Wow.
acting like this, we're gonna go home. Or so like basically they were just like, hey, we think you need to take a break. And so they're like, if we have to cover
Ouch.
for somebody because we don't like it. So that was kind of a con as it kind of burnt out. So basically what me and Aaliyah did was we took 3 days off. We went to like a water park with our youth group, with our not our youth group, our small group. They try to go like once a year, and it's like an amusement park, kind of like Six Flags. It's called Holiday World. It's kind of local. Um, and I literally turned my phone off for like 3 or 4 days.
Wow.
Like we went to like this nice restaurant. It was at a vineyard. We went to. I think I turned my phone off Friday morning, and then I didn't turn it back on until like Sunday after church or like at like
Oh
four,
my
towards that
word.
evening.
That's brutal.
And the world did not burn down. If somebody needed to get a hold of me, they called Aaliyah. And yeah, so like burnout can be real, and sometimes it
Yes.
takes. That's kind of the con of knowing that you have a mission. Because
Yes.
even though I'm moving at 1,000 miles an hour, not everybody else can go with me. It's like a game of tug of war. It's like I'm pulling them, not necessarily pulling with me. And so
Yes.
it's kind of like I'm on the other end of them. So that was kind of a con from last year, I would say.
Yeah, that's good. So it's really good for people to hear all those bumps in the road and how this all travels along. It's not always easy. One thing I've noticed by what you shared so far is the systems that are in Augusta. It sounds like you followed all of them. So you did the price raise, you pushed jobs to July and August. The customers knew they were pushed out. They still stuck with you and waited for you to do those jobs. And then coming up to again to now, what you shared the other day was how you did that price increase. And then
Hmm.
when you did that, that was a year ago, right? So it would have been last
Hmm.
May. And now at this recording, we're into June. So
Hmm.
June, around June 15th. So a month beyond what you did before. And
Hmm.
so you've made that profit. You've seen now the benefits of that over this year. What has this spring been like in the way you communicate with your crew, in the way after going through that with your crew, like your personal capacity, and now you're more
Hmm.
self-aware, I'm sure, of when you're getting to that point. So what has this year been like? And then your mentality
Hmm.
about money and like the peace it brings or the from the results of all the hard work and the reaping, I guess I would say,
Mhm.
from all of those sacrifices and hard times. How has that been for you?
Yeah, so on the personal business financial side one, it helps a ton. I'm not really checking our budget as much. So like I don't stress about like if the grocery budget went $20 over or if we had an unexpected bill. And I think some of it is like um some of that prosperity on like the personal side also comes from like, boredom is the devil's playground. If you're not
Mm-hmm.
using your time wisely, kind of like Murphy's Law as well will kind of like happen. And so if you're not being a good steward or observing or interconnected with what's going on, that can really that can also hurt you at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think my personal capacity is probably around that 120,000 a
Mm-hmm.
month, which if you asked me a year ago, I would have that's whenever it was like the breaking point for me. But now I feel like all the lessons that you learned that took you a long time to figure out
Mm-hmm.
are like whenever you have that lesson again, I'm like, okay, I've been through this before. Like I know when a crappy employee comes through, like I've seen this before. So you have the
Yes.
conversation up front. If you have it again, what took me 2 or 3 months to figure out took me a matter of a couple of days or a couple of weeks to figure out. So I feel like those lessons along the way, as long as um, um, your recall
Mm-hmm.
of when life sucked to now life's great or life is nice, as long as you can remember the lessons you learned along the way, you can still have a crappy day, but still have a really good outcome with what's going on. Cause you're like, okay, well, I've been through that before. Yeah, it sucks, but like I don't spend way as much mental capacity dealing with that situation. And so on the some of the profiting of that, well, one, a price increase, we went through, we just put every customer on a Google spreadsheet, put their price on it, and we just raised everybody 20%. And that's just kind of how we did it. And then this year we kind of did the same thing. We did roughly 20% on everybody that joined after last price increase
Okay.
on that calendar year, same 20%, and a couple targeted since that helped. And then that prosperity allowed us to buy another location. So now we have another location that we also did some price increases on because in growth mode, it was a lot, it's a lot, you know, competitive pricing, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
or it's a lot more, it's a lot lower pricing than you would typically do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like you're giving it away, but you're not really making any money on it at the same time. And so basically last year's price increase allowed one, the team to make more money. Two, I felt like I was able to demand more because we were paying a lot more because like our
Mm-hmm.
base went up. The base went up $2, but technically it was like a 12% increase on the base. So I mean, whenever you raise a wage by 12%, like that's like, hey, we're not giving you just like 3 to 5%, like annual cost of living. No, we gave you like 4x annual cost
No
of living
kidding.
on the base side, and then hourly rate went up as well. So I think for the employee side, it allowed us to buy like um, better. We didn't really buy a ton, but like it allowed us to fix problems quicker. Like if the truck broke down, it allowed us to just like fix it. And so
Yep.
like once I had some money in the bank, that was also a de-stress for ourselves.
Yeah.
And so then we were actually able to like show the fruit of the reward of some
Mm-hmm.
of the hard work. And this year we did the same thing. We did that price increase again for 2025 on about 90 clients that gained from the price increase that joined from the price increase last year. And then the second location we did targeted, which actually ended up being like close to a 50% price increase
Wow.
versus Evansville's like flat rate. And
Mm-hmm.
so the difference of that was I just did the lazy way. I just said, okay, your price is this. Go to Google Excel, multiply this by one, one this cell times this 1.2 equals, and then you just pull it down and drag it, right? Like the
Hmm.
basic Google Excel part. Well, in Henderson, because we only had, 45 clients, about 35 of them, or 45 or 50 clients, about 35 of them were all on the old owner's pricing because I bought an existing location who wanted to get out. I bought his. I inherited the pricing from him. And after a coaching call with Nick, we were just like, hey, because he did all the work, he
Mm-hmm.
was able to profit. But because I was not able to do all the work, I had to go pay somebody. That kind of showed the wounds of that
Yes.
location because I wasn't able to run it profitably
Right.
with paying somebody else, $24 an hour and plus P for P or whatever else. They just weren't able to hit P for P whatsoever.
Hmm.
So we had to artificially raise their base so that way they didn't feel like they were getting taken advantage of for that time.
Yeah.
And we eventually, I can't remember in the video, a 42 or 47% price increase on average for all of the customers. We had four people leave as of this week, and we've gained five customers this
Incredible.
week. So same thing in Evansville. We had about three or four customers leave in the past week, maybe five. And on the schedule, we probably had three or four initial mows just today. So we may have gained six or seven. So I mean, onward and upward.
Yeah, yeah, that's fantastic. So you've piqued the interest of everybody listening now, and they want to know how did it come about that you would even hear about a location that's for sale? And those who are listening, it's actually an existing Augusta location. So how
Mhm.
did all of that roll from the time you heard about, oh, hey, there's this opportunity to you like weighing the cost and should I do this? Sometimes we're not ready for these opportunities when they come up for us. And then how did that go through the sale process and now meshing it with the current team you have? Did you bring over
Mhm.
members of their team? Just tell us a little bit
Mhm.
about that.
Yeah, so because we were able to have a highly profitable year, and also when you have a profitable year, being able to kind of um, hold the dollar bill over somebody's head for quarterly profit sharing,
Hmm.
actually legitimately means something when it's more than like a couple $100.
Yes.
So like our quarterly profit sharings ended up being anywhere between 1,200 to like $2,200 per employee. That was
Awesome.
something worth, a good penny. So
Yes.
that was, sorry, I don't mean to backtrack. That
Oh,
just
no, you're
made me
good.
think about that.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
so, um, but how that conversation came about was last year when all those employees quit in May, I ended up reaching out to the other franchisees in my area because they both happen to live in Evansville. One just went down to the next town over, Henderson, and the other one services Newburgh. So there were three of us we all butted up next to each other in terms of boundary or territory.
Hmm.
And I basically just had always kept good relations with them, even though in a very pragmatic stance, all that did was hinder me because now I can't grow out as
Yes,
much. But
exactly.
that was kind of like issues I said that I had with the franchise, I guess, not necessarily the individual.
Right.
That was like, but it's also like I wasn't ready to buy those locations either. So it was just like, it kind of is what it is. And, the issue was not necessarily the solo, which was a totally different topic. And that's all been resolved
Hmm.
now. But it doesn't mean that the individuals were to blame whatsoever. And
Right.
so I always kept in touch with Hugo and Bromwell and their wives. And, we tried to have dinners every so often together if we could. And then I just told them, I was like, guys, I have so many properties to do. And this was like a Saturday. I was like, we literally have like 100 properties that we have to get done. I called my buddy Braden, who used to work for us. I called those guys. I was like, I just need help. Even if you can just do like a dozen properties, and I'll pay you every single dollar that I earn from those customers. I just need to take care of the
Just need
customer.
you. Yes.
I just need help. And so they both said absolutely. And so they
Wow.
each took on like 12 or 13 properties for me. And I think Hugo even hurt his foot because he was overworked from doing his own properties. He ended up having to go to the hospital. So I
Oh
felt kind
my
of bad,
goodness.
but he didn't even tell me. His wife told me like 2 weeks ago. So I was like even more thankful that he would do that and not tell me because he didn't want to burden me. So that was
No
like a good
kidding.
steward friendship
Yes.
that we had right there. And neither one of them wanted any money. So
Wow.
that was even better. And so I think that sparked a big thing for later. And I
Got it.
remember talking to Hugo because Newburgh is in the state of Indiana. So I wanted his location first, where Henderson is in Kentucky. So a little bit different laws potentially, but Newburgh was just like in our backyard. Like if you service Newburgh, you service Evansville. If you service Evansville, you service Newburgh. Well, we don't. We only service one or the other because of another territory being there.
Mm.
And so I offered the money to Hugo first, or just like, hey, conversation. Like, he was a solo model. His growth model fee was about to come up. I'm like, hey, I just want to make sure you're serious. All of this, and he basically said, I bleed yellow. I was like, okay. And he was like, really, no amount of money is going to make me want to leave. And so,
Mm-hmm.
you know, before I go somewhere else with my money, I want to offer to somebody that is in our backyard before I go elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so then later on, I had that conversation with Bromwell and Cassandra, who were the other owners, and they ended up saying, like, no, we're not really interested. And I was like, okay, well, just as, a person from faith to faith, I would appreciate if you would at least consider it, throw it up to your wife if you want. And if not, if you tell me no, that's fine. But let me know in like a week. And then like 2 days, a day later, he's like, I think we'll sell. I was like, oh,
Wow.
we went from like 90-10 to like 90-10 the other way. And so then we ended up having the conversation of what does it look like to take over? We came up with our purchase price agreement. And then for me, it was worth paying a little bit more because I feel like I paid a little bit more, one, to be in a part of Augusta. Like if it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't Augusta, because then I got a protected territory, growth model, there was a whole lot of other stuff. If it were just Joe Schmo, the numbers would not have made sense. But I also had to pay my part to the franchise. And he also came with an existing customer list of about 40 accounts, and it also came with a truck. And so then it came with some other stuff along, some marketing material. So it came with some tangible stuff along
Mm-hmm.
the way that I would need to facilitate their location. But it did not come with any employees because it was basically a husband and wife team at that size.
I see.
And yeah, I guess really the only negative on that was it was very husband and wife. So
Yeah.
like where we have command center and my wife working in tandem together, like a
Mm-hmm.
hybrid situation, there was a lot of like personal phone conversations or like a lot of memory
Oh my
knowledge.
word.
So
Yes.
whenever I went to go take over the locations, I kind of knew what to do. And then we kind of didn't. And so we really upset a whole bunch of clients the first couple of weeks. And we're just like, hey, like without telling you that like we're brand new, we're like, this is Jaden. He's the new employee that I took from Evansville, gave him
Mm-hmm.
the responsibility of Henderson for the the working man position of that location. Came to like he's like, I have to like relearn all these properties. Like I don't know
Yes.
anybody. I don't really know the town all that well, even though it's only about 20 minutes away. It's more of like a pass through for us when we're going somewhere.
Okay.
Um, and so yeah, so what sparked the conversation was just stewarding good relationships
Mm-hmm.
and giving more than you take, most likely.
Yeah. And for me, that is what comes down to the kind of person you are. So just to go way back, the first time that you really came to my attention, we meet everyone when they come for training. We spend four
Sure.
days with them. And it does become a bit of a blur until you spend some time to somebody with someone or they come to your attention in some other way. And we were down in Tennessee and I was going to speak and a few other people, and we were trying to set up the sound system. And I said, can anybody help me with this? And you were the first person up there. So I really didn't have like, you even forget where people are from. There's just
Right.
so many owners. And it just came to my attention. I was like, wow, Connor was right there with me, like for the rest of the time, anything I needed, like he was right there. And then I found out after that that your whole life you had been, up in front of people, working sound systems, helping people. And I have seen that like a thread weave through everything you've done with Augusta. You're always giving back. And the fact that your two owners would come and help you that day for nothing, no money at all, in spite of their own suffering and things, is because you had already paid all of that forward. You had already poured out to them and had helped them so many times, and now it was coming back to help you. And then um, all the success that you've had recently to reach out and to ask them, like, "Hey, could I buy?" That was such a good move, so smart to do, and something that a lot of owners would love to do, but they have to realize that all of the things you did for years, years before, and relationships you cultivated made that a positive experience when it could have gone really bad for you when you finally wanted to purchase the location. So, how long ago was that you purchased?
So the bill of sale was 5-1, so like 42 days ago.
Oh my goodness. So you kept no employees, and then
Right.
all of those customers you had to raise the prices on, and you basically have had to retrain the customers, right?
Yeah, we've had to everybody's going to have about 80-90% of the standard you hope,
Hmm.
and that 10 to 20% is what takes the longest to really get somebody on there. So, you know, there were a lot of customizations, I guess, that like we
Hmm.
were not willing to accommodate, like doing people on a very specific day, no matter what happens, or like um, giving out your personal phone number so they can reach out to you whenever they want. Like we
Hmm.
just, you know, several hundred clients between the two locations, you just can't scale that, or you just
Right.
can't be available for that.
Yeah. So, one thing I always tell owners when I do talk to them is if you don't know what's going to happen in the future, and before you use Command Center and it's just you and it's just you and your wife, to always keep in mind that someday that's going to change, or someday you're going to have a life event and you're going to need to throw things over to Command Center and you're going to need help fast. Right
Yep.
there is a perfect example of it was done out of the systems. So if just two of them or one of them had done everything in the systems as they know, according to the standards of Augusta, then you would have been able to step right in and take over without missing a beat. And Aaliyah
Right.
could have stepped in and done all the office things because she would have seen, oh, in that note in Copilot, it says this because that person that was
Mhm.
in there 3 days ago, and this is what happened. And it should
Right.
have been that Aaliyah could have jumped right into that whole situation and it could have been different. So
Mhm.
it really does pay off for all of us to be doing the same thing, to be putting notes in accounts when we do something, for franchisee, command center, all of us, because it would have made this whole transition for you so much easier.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I wouldn't have done anything any different, like,
Yeah.
or that I did anything different before Augusta. Um, that's a learning curve in its own regard. I'm sure we still have people in Augusta that come brand new, and it's the same thing. And
Yes.
there's a learning curve for whenever they or a pain tolerance that they have to go through when they switch over to
Hmm.
command. So it is
Yeah.
better to just not bow down to it, but just fall in line type thing. So that way everybody is a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. So there's so much we could share and so many directions we could go, but really what I wanted to bring across today was that we see somebody and we are happy they're successful, we're happy they're making money and profits are finally coming in. They have actually matured as a person to where you're actually a coach in Augusta Nation, and all the things that have happened before, people have watched that since you joined and now they have confidence in you and now you're a coach and you're able to help so many more people and pass on the same kind of integrity and character that you have, which is so appreciated. And so now we could talk about all of that, but we appreciate all that you've been giving back to Augusta and all the things that you implement and learn and then report back. It's just the fabric of what all of the individuals in Augusta Nation are made of. And I just wanted to share today, I guess, a point in your life where you're actually reaping from all that you've been pouring out for other people all these years, and that it really does pay off, and that there's more good in your life to come because of all that you poured out. So,
Yeah.
just in closing, is there anything that you could share to people that are in those difficult spots where you were 2 years ago? When you were completely overwhelmed, you didn't have the money, you didn't know what you should do, and you're like laying almost an ultimatum out to Aaliyah, like if we can't do this, then I promised you all these things.
Yeah.
We have to do this together, or the ship is going to sink. So, could you give some encouragement to others that might be in that spot?
Yeah, so I guess the behind the scenes of that conversation that I had with Aaliyah last spring was I don't think that it's Augusta that's not working. I think it's myself as just not comprehending something along the way, or I'm getting in my own way. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like you said about following the systems, I was just like, you know what? I signed up for this. So the piece of advice is just to myself was, I'm going to do exactly this. I'm going to do the door hanger campaign. I'm going to do what I believe that conference Mike talked about, like discretionary effort is everything
Mm-hmm.
past 100% of what you're
Yeah.
responsible for. And so like I'm going to get up early, do the do the routing, do the maintenance on the machines. I'll stay late. Just because I want to get off at 4 or 5 or whatever doesn't mean that, like, well, I remember telling Leah, I'm not coming home until I pass out 500 door hangers. if that means it's in 2 hours or if that's in 10 hours because somebody called me, the mower's stuck or the mower's broke down. Only thing that matters is that I follow this plan. There's like
Mm-hmm.
three things a day. So I think a lot of it comes down to creating your routine, creating your system, putting the stops along the way to the goal to get
Mm-hmm.
there are super important and allowed us to have such success to where we hesitated paying off our credit card or we couldn't pay it off or hesitated paying myself an actual salary or a profit or anything to just being like, hey, we went from paying myself the base 52 to like last year, Ali and I did close to like 200 something $1,000 and like for our own personal stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
we were able to like 4x and all of that came from 10xing my effort following the plan. The Mike talks about like 6 week sprints, or in the spring rush, we talk about like that's about a quarter. So following
Yes.
the quarters plan, which then allowed us to execute well on Christmas lights. So all the effort, and then it allowed us to execute well on winter services
Mm-hmm.
and putting in all that extra effort. The non-scale, it's like scaling the non-scalable.
Yes.
Like then we went through and did super personalized individual Zoom Loom videos for winter service clients to get that business.
Mm-hmm.
And so really a lot of it came from all the discretionary effort past 5 p.m. So the effort is all that work.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem like a lot of progress right now, but
Mm-hmm.
everything I was doing the quarter or the 6 months before was the compounding effect of the discretionary effort before. So
Yes.
then I was able to take a little bit longer break at conference and have 4 or 5 days beforehand to enjoy with just my wife,
Yeah.
or spend a week down in Florida with my parents for Christmas because that's where they live. And so I was able to do that where beforehand I would stress out the
Yes.
wazoo. I don't have the money to do this. I need to be reducing hours. I don't even know how I'm going to pay my own self. How am I going to pay these people to put
Mm-hmm.
it on the credit card? To like, hey, we were able to buy new trucks. We were able to buy we were able to invest in ourselves at that point as well. And so
Mm-hmm.
the in closing would just be all the discretionary effort that you put in now will pay off as long as you stick to the plan. Because the only time that you won't see the proceeds of that, as long as you're following a profitable or prosperous plan,
Mm-hmm.
is when you quit.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't win the game if you're not in the game. So it's
Yeah.
like Warren Buffett, it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. And so I guess that
Wow.
would kind of be the
Yeah.
last
That's
epilogue to that
beautiful.
story.
That's beautiful. I think it's going to encourage so many people to hang in there and really stay on the path because there are benefits along the way. It's a marathon, not a sprint,
Yeah,
but you didn't have to get all the way to the end to find some benefits. It's all along the way. There's a lot of positive things and
yeah.
progress that we make. So
It's funny you say that because I
yeah,
did a half marathon about 2 months ago, my very
no
first one.
way. That's
And so I'm not
awesome.
just pushing ourselves like financially or in the business. I was like, I have to stay uncomfortable because if I want my crew to do stuff that's
100%.
uncomfortable, I have to. So my first half marathon in March 22nd, and so about 3 months ago. So, and I remember those first 10 miles weren't that bad, but the last three, probably
Yes.
where we all want to quit,
Yep.
are the hardest. But that adrenaline or that success after the fact, that like only like 2% of people in the world ever run a half marathon or a marathon. Like there's a very small percentage of people
Yeah.
that do it. You are the crazy one, but you did all this effort and they're like, man, must be nice. And you're like,
Uh-huh.
that sucked.
Yes.
And it was super painful. But you know how cool it was to be able to tell people, like, hey, we had a profitable year, or hey, profitably, like physically was also super cool. And so,
Yes.
like, yeah, it's just a lot.
It's
It's
very
cool.
empowering. So wonderful.
Yes,
Well, I know you're very busy, and I really appreciate that you would take the time today to share with others. I know it'll be a great blessing to them. So thank you so much.
absolutely.